Good morning, Central Baptist Church family. I'm really humbled and excited about the response. A lot of people are getting involved in this Romans Bible study, so stick with it. I hope that you'll see it through to the end. And thank you to the teens, to the church members, and to my friends. Thank you so much for participating in this Bible study with us. So Romans chapter 2, hope you read it already. Make sure you're doing that, teens. Make sure you're actually reading the chapter, not just watching the videos. But in Romans, these first several chapters, Paul's addressing the Judaizers. We've talked about that in Sunday school. The Judaizers are these Jewish converts who are trying to basically integrate works by the law into salvation, which this is the age of grace. This is salvation by grace through faith alone. And really, it's not about the works. It's not about the law. But these Judaizers are like, no, you have to abide by the law in order to truly be a believer. And so Paul is trying to expose that in this chapter. So look at verse number 1. He says, Therefore thou art inexcusable, O man, whosoever thou art that judgest. For wherein thou judgest another, thou condemnest thyself. For thou that judgest doest the same things. He's saying if you're over here telling people they're not good enough and they're not abiding by the law perfectly, he's like, if you're going to judge other people, then you need to be more critical of your own lifestyle. You need to be more critical of your own behavior, your own practices, to make sure those match up with what you're teaching. And then he exposes it further in verse 21. Look there, it says, Thou therefore that teachest another, teachest thou not thyself. If you're going to be getting up here as a pastor or as a Sunday school teacher, you got to make sure, does my life, am I bringing biblical instruction into my own life, or do I think that I am good enough to be able to just teach without that? No, you need to make sure you're educating yourself spiritually. Thou that preachest, a man should not steal, dost thou steal? He's saying, well, obviously we're against thievery, but are you giving to God? This is the time of the great pandemic. This is going to be really hard to remember to tithe on a consistent basis. But if you're not tithing, you're stealing from God. So is your life consistent? Verse 22, Thou that sayest a man should not commit adultery, dost thou commit adultery? Obviously it's wrong for a man to cheat on his wife or vice versa. But are you guarding your eyes? Are you guarding your mind? Are you making sure that you are truly pure in every area of your life? He says, or thou that abhorrest idols, dost thou commit sacrilege? Okay, it's not as big of a deal to us nowadays, but idolatry was a really big deal back then. He's saying, obviously we're against idolatry, but are you putting God before everything else in your life? If you're not, you're committing sacrilege. That's a form of idolatry. He's trying to expose the cracks in the armor. He's trying to show them that you think you're good enough, but you're really not. None of us here are truly good enough. And the reality is we're all hypocrites. We all struggle with it. But the one way that we can avoid hypocrisy is by practicing biblical consistency. It's not about looking in Scripture and analyzing the very specific details and saying, okay, I'm going to do this, and this, but then the rest of my life doesn't line up. Everything has to match. That's the consistency. We got to make sure that we are in every area of our life just seeking to follow God, just seeking to make sure that we're doing what is right, not just outwardly, not just at church, not just in front of certain friends, but even in our own minds, even at school, which we don't have right now, but eventually when you get back there in 2023, we need to make sure that in everything we do around any other person, whether we're alone at home, we need to make sure that we are being consistent, practicing biblical consistency.